Welcome to the Pillar Podcast, where we put racial equity front and center. Join us as we explore equity. We'll take a look at overcoming opportunity gaps and strategies that ensure equitable learning experiences for all students in JCPS.
Welcome to another episode of the Pillar Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 3 with School Choice. And today I have with me the Lindsay Bell, Dr. Lindsay Bell, and Miss Amanda Averett Bush. Welcome.
Well, hello. Glad to be here today.
Glad to have you all. So last season, Dr. Bell, you interviewed with DEP member DeJuan Williams, and at that time you talked about you were working on your doctorate in social work and administrative leadership. Given your title, I'm assuming that is completed.
It is, yes. I graduated in May. Woohoo! So, yes, I'm still getting used to the doctor, and feel free to just call me Lindsay.
All right, Lindsay. So, are you planning to use that new degree in your current role, or is that something you're going to use down the road a little bit?
Well, I think that, so my degree is in social work and administrative leadership. And so, of course, social work really can go across many different avenues. So social work they have core values, which a couple of them are social justice and service. And so I think in this particular department, both of those really apply, because our office focuses on, in terms of service, what is best for students. We also focus on equity in every decision that we make using an equity lens. And so I think both of those values really align with social work. And then additionally, my capstone was about specifically outreach for students of color and the magnet application process. And so developed a kind of framework for outreach for that. And so that perfectly aligns with this position as well.
Which, to me, what I'm hearing is essentially building a community. And with that, like, just kind of tying back into last year, you talked about creating a little bit more access and sharing that information. Is that kind of how that ties in as far as you building a community?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about, last year we were talking a lot about social networks and just how those impact what kind of knowledge that they have and how they access information. And so building those social networks is super important, especially in terms of families understanding their options under our new assignment plan. So I think we'll talk about our new school choice plan that was passed in June. Hopefully we'll get into that a little bit. And that really offers an opportunity to build those social networks to make sure that community members and families understand the plan, how to navigate the plan, how to access the schools that are best for their kids, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, Ms. Averett Bush, you're in a new role this year as executive administrator. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How has the transition been from your previous role to the role you're in now, and how have some of your responsibilities changed?
So I will say I've been in what we then called student assignment, and now we're shifting to school choice. I've been in this department since 2015. And so I will say, as far as, my role changing, of course, I'm in more of a leadership role now, but that's not how we roll in our department. We have a very collaborative leadership approach. And so we know it takes all to really move the work forward. So I can say in that sense, there hasn't been much of a change. There's been change in individuals, getting new roles, but we have really been centered on moving the work forward since 2015. Now, the one big change, of course, is we had a unanimous vote for our new school choice plan in June. So now, of course, we we were thinking about a proposal and what needed to change, and now we're excited to be in a place to where we can actually work on that implementation. So I would say, that's probably the change that, I've seen, is now we're really able to do the work now.
And with the new school choice plan, right? I know a lot has gone into that, from as far as planning and staff and everything. So you guys have actually added a couple members to your team, right?
Yes, we're excited about that.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about those individuals and what they do?
Sure, yeah. We were able to add 2 outreach coordinators to our team, and they have just been an amazing asset to our office and the community as well. And so their role really is getting that information out to families, making sure that families and students understand what their options are, and even that one-on-one application assistance once our application period opens. And so there's been a lot of partnerships and building relationships with community members. So back to what we were talking about, building those social networks, a lot of relationship building with community agencies and other folks in the community, as well as schools. And so we want both to have internal relationships and external relationships that support this work. And so they have been really instrumental in developing those relationships and kind of coordinating events and activities that we can do to support the outreach.
And speaking of events, you guys have a couple events upcoming. Is that correct?
A couple.
More than a couple.
You got a few.
Just off the chain.
Outreach.
So far, I think we have 43 events scheduled. So yes, we have a very busy next couple of months. And so a lot of our events are community-wide, but then we also have some school-specific events. We wanted every school in the choice zone to have, every elementary school to have a 5th grade transition night, because this is different in our plan now. Every student that lives in that choice zone, which is that specific geographic area where the students have the dual reside option or the choice close to home or far away. So every single one of those students transitioning will have to make that choice close to home or far away, and won't be a default option. And so we are holding events at all of those schools so that we can help to facilitate that piece of the application.
And so those are actually called transition nights, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I know a lot of planning has gone into that and coordinating with each school community. So who all is involved in that, and how do parents get to know, like, where they get that information? Mm-hmm. What do parents need to do?
So schools, the individual schools that are holding events will be inviting their families out to the events. And so they should really watch for something to come home, probably via the either School Connects or School Messenger, however they receive communication. And then also we've created flyers to be sent with students. And so connecting with the counselor at the school, if they don't hear anything, maybe saying, hey, tapping the counselor or somebody else in such a position at the school, maybe the family resource coordinator, and asking if they're going to have a transition night. And if not, we do have community-wide events that will be going out in the JCPS Insider and also through our School Connects platform to share the district-wide events where people can come to any of those. And we have a couple at the satellite offices.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to those, and I think we'll talk a little bit about those. But let's, like you mentioned earlier, we want to talk a little bit about the student assignment plan. Mm-hmm. And we all know it's been about 40 years since the student assignment plan was last updated. And there's a lot of support, and there's also some, I would say, some a little uncomfortable with the change that happened on June 1st. How important was the change?
So I will say that the change was the ability to move. And so although it is uncomfortable with the unknowing, We know that it's nowhere in best practice that you should have any plan that doesn't have a comprehensive review in almost 40 years. Especially when you speak to the inequities that were present in the plan. And, as Lindsay shared, she is a social worker. We have several members of our team that have social work backgrounds, myself included. And so when you have that lens on equity, empowering families, advocating for families, ensuring that families and students have access, there was no way that we could leave our plan as is.
Yeah.
So although uncomfortable, I think what you did find is we had a unanimous board vote to move forward. And so, this is a heavy lift for everyone. But I will say, just for myself, I have to stand firm in what's right for our students and families. And this is an opportunity that we have to lean into in order to better serve our students and families. So although uncomfortable, we could not remain where we were. We had to have a path forward that I've said multiple times. It is not perfect by any means, but it gives us, again, that opportunity to better meet the needs of our students so that we can see positive student outcomes. And honestly, this is the first time that we've ever had academic outcomes tied to a student assignment plan. That is not something that you have seen. And so that came from the community wanting to ensure, if I am uncomfortable and I don't know what this looks like, how can we ensure that, one, what you said is going to happen is what's going to be done? Because we do know that, we needed to work to build trust, because when you have an inequitable system and people know, people see it, people feel it, then you have to be in a place to where you're putting systems in place that can address that, and layers of how are you going to monitor outcomes and accountability for the changes that are occurring. And that is what has been birthed out of this in collaboration with the community. So although it's a heavy lift, I am overjoyed that we also have that opportunity now to be able to move forward.
Absolutely. And in that plan, we have a close to home option and a far away option. And if I'm correct, there's, from a parent standpoint, there's some ranking that should go into that when you're looking to register and sign up. So in the choice zone dual reside option, how important is the ranking of your close to home versus far away option? And is there a certain strategy a parent or guardian should adopt when they're doing that?
So I think it's important for families to know that the choice zone is what we used to call our satellite area that historically did not have an opportunity or option to have a school close to home. I speak about my personal experience growing up in what we're now calling the choice zone and not having that option and having to attend a school that was further away. What we did not want to do is make that choice for the family, because, if I was in school at this time, I am extremely confident that my mother and father would be able, our guardian, be able to make that decision on what school, whether they want it to be close or further away. So we want families to be able to understand their options and make that informed choice. We are not making that choice on behalf of families. And so right now we have a system at the elementary level where if you are new to our district or your address changes, there is an application needed. So I want to make sure that the community understands that we already have a system in place that's similar to what we're moving toward for the choice zone. So this won't be something that's totally new or foreign to us. So we want families to explore their options. That's why Showcase of Schools that will be here next Saturday on October the 15th at the Kentucky International Convention Center. And this year we have shuttles throughout the city at
Awesome.
9 different locations that will be running throughout the day, because it's important for you to know what's available so you can engage in that choice. Families look at schools for many different reasons. And so when you say ranking at the elementary level, that's where that's going to speak most to. At the high school level in the choice zone, they will have their far away school and their close to home, which will be the Academy at Shawnee. All of it is based on their address. So it's not a free for all. They will be utilizing options based on that address. That School Finder is the go-to place to be
Okay.
able to know what those options are. But open houses, visiting schools' websites, going to Showcase of Schools, utilizing our choices books that are available online but will be in print soon. Utilizing all of those options that are available to really narrow down what's the best fit for your child. And this is an additional option. So families can still apply to magnet schools and programs. Families can still engage in the student transfer application process. This is what's based on their address.
And it's, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a lot of different options, right? When we talk about magnet schools versus magnet programs, across the board. And as this event is coming up, what are some of the questions parents and or guardians can ask themselves or their child to help determine the best school choice or program?
I think just really exploring with your child what their interests are, because we know that the child, more interested that they are in what they're doing at school, the more engaged they're going to be. So we have so many options across our district and so many schools that are doing amazing things, and it runs the gamut from performing arts to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math to automotive to firefighting. There's just all kinds of options for students. And so really sitting down and having those conversations with students, and not that they have to know at this very moment what they want to do 10 years from now, but what do you even want to explore? And I think that's one thing about even middle school, the new Explore programs that are going to be piloted in some of the middle schools are going to allow students to explore all kinds of different options that then once they see, okay, I really like this, I'm going to look for a high school that has a program that really focuses on this, because some students are leaving high school with certifications that they can go right out into the world and get a job, you know.
Immediate impact. Yeah.
Exactly. And a well-paid job. So I think it's just really important to have those conversations, and for families, like Amanda was saying, to explore all those options. So go to the Showcase of Schools, kind of prepare ahead of time if you can. Which schools might you want to talk to? Which schools are district-wide? So no matter where you live, you can attend that school. And then which schools are part, if you're in high school in particular, part of your network. So which are the schools that are in your area? What do they have that your child might like? And then talking to those schools, visiting those schools, and seeing where your child may feel like they belong, because that sense of belonging is super important.
It's super important. And can you help define or differentiate for those who that may not be as familiar with traditional programs versus magnet programs versus magnet schools? How can they make the best decision between specifically a magnet program versus a magnet school?
So I think that it's going to be back to that interest. What is your child interested in? Because the difference between a magnet program and a magnet school is really just how students are admitted into the school. So, for example, a magnet school, every student who attends there applied and was accepted. And that could either be by lottery, or it could be criteria based. So that depends on the specific schools. You mentioned traditional, that they are actually magnets. So traditional is just one of the magnets.
One of the magnets.
Yes,
Gotcha. Yep.
they're not separate than other magnets. And then magnet programs, some of the students apply, and then other students go there based on their address. And so we are really moving toward those Magnet Schools of America best practices. And one of the best practices is wall-to-wall implementation of magnet programs. And so what we want and our desire is for every student in the school to have access to that programming. While they may not all be in the magnet program, they would have access to that programming if they were interested in it. And so that's kind of the big difference between magnet schools and magnet programs. Magnet schools do have district-wide transportation. And so in the high schools, the transportation is available for networks. And so that's important to note. And then academies are only available in high schools as well.
Got it. So kind of sticking with the magnet topic and theme, I know we need to, or we're working on getting in line with Magnet Schools of America. Americas, is that correct?
America.
In their best practices, have we begun working with individual magnet schools on ensuring that they're meeting their diversity targets and goals? And do we know what those targets and goals are?
So we are working this year. We have a partnership with Magnet Schools of America. They are. We had our first professional development for magnet schools several weeks ago, and we actually have another one coming up really soon. We felt like this was a sort of level setting opportunity for us because we weren't necessarily aligned with best practice with Magnet Schools of America. Just because of our historical context of how magnets were implemented in our districts. So our first professional development was very much foundational. We wanted to make sure that everyone understood what the pillars were for our magnets and how we're moving forward. Our next professional development is actually on diversity. So we will be partnering with diversity, equity, and poverty in our office and schools. We want to begin that conversation with that professional development, making sure that schools understand the importance of diversity within our magnet schools and programs. And then in the spring, we will be working together with schools so that they can really dig in individually and do a root cause analysis as to why their demographics of their particular program may not be aligned with the district averages. And then past that, taking their criteria through the racial equity protocol to ensure, that they're really diving in after that root cause analysis and then sitting down collaboratively and setting goals. And so that's sort of in a nutshell what we are working on this year. We will be starting that implementation in the 23-24 school year. So we're excited to be able to work with schools on this. I think the first professional development was absolutely amazing. The facilitator, understood. She met us where we were.
Yeah, okay, that's important.
And she's going to help us travel the journey that we're going to be on together. So it's exciting.
I want to talk a little bit about applying, right? The application process, what goes into that. When is the application deadline for this upcoming year?
So it is December the 16th of 2022. Which a lot of families don't realize because that is so early for the 23-24 school year, which starts in August. But there is a lot of planning, preparation, review of applications, and so that deadline is December the 16th.
And it's very important to get your applications in on time to ensure you get one of your top options, if not your top option. So if parent or guardian's application comes in after that deadline, what can they expect?
Sure, that's a great question. So, particularly if you're applying to a magnet school program or an academy, those applications do go in what we call the late file. And schools can only access their late files if they still have space after they've processed all the on time applications. And so, additionally, for the schools that are lottery admissions, that lottery will have already been run. If your application was submitted during the application window. And so again, students who do complete that on time, they receive a wait list number if they're not accepted into that lottery admission program. For students that are applying for elementary, we do have, historically, I think about 90% of students who completed on time get one of their top choices. And so that is the importance of getting it in on time, because what happens is as time goes on and into the summer, there's less capacity at the schools, and we definitely have to take capacity into consideration when we're making school placements. And so that's why that application window is very important.
And I'm big on best practices. I think if something is set before you to model after, it just makes sense. And sometimes there could be nuances with applications in that process. So as we're talking about applying to schools, are there any best practices you can share when it comes to filling out the application? Things that may go overlooked at times, or some may feel is not that important to complete on the application?
For elementary in particular, I think what we find sometimes is parents who are interested in magnet schools or programs, they only complete that part of the application, and then they don't rank their schools that are in their zone. And so that what happens is if the student doesn't get in their magnet school or program, then they have they don't receive a placement at another school that is in their zone. And so that's one thing I say that parents overlook a lot of times. So the magnet portion is optional, but if your child is definitely attending JCPS, then the ranking of the schools is required. And so that's really important to note. I also think that it's important to note that all incoming kindergarten, 6th and 9th grade students living in the choice zone need to make that close to home or far away selection. That will not be defaulted, as we said earlier. So that's going to be new. So we definitely want parents to know that they need to make that close to home or far away option, and that is guaranteed. So whether they select close to home or they select far away is guaranteed that they will be close to home or far away based on what they select. And then the other thing for magnets and academies is just some of the schools require additional information to be provided to the school. It could be an essay, it could be a recommendation form, it could be an audition. And so parents really need to make sure that they do their research to see what else is required from the school to complete your application, because you could do the district application and not submit the materials and you don't have a complete application. And so it's just really important to do your research and to check and see what other materials are required by the school.
And those are things that parents and guardians can ask at Showcase of Schools, correct?
100%, yes.
Perfect. So during the NAACP JCPS Community Forum, you talked about magnet coordinators. What is a magnet coordinator? How will they be implemented? Is this a role that's outsourced, or is this going to be a JCPS?
So magnet coordinators are supposed to be an individual that is a role in a magnet school that is their dedicated role, and that individual is supposed to oversee the magnet theme implementation to ensure that the theme is implemented with fidelity. That person is also charged with recruitment for the magnet theme in the building. And what we also saw in Magnet Schools of America when we went to the conference last spring is that magnet coordinators there had developed even student ambassadors for their individual magnet programs. And those students from elementary, middle, and high, I think some individuals that were on the elementary tours even had second or third grade students who were actually leading tours. So if parents or families wanted to go tour the schools, like when we have our open house schedules, it would actually be the students that would be leading those tours that were actually trained as magnet ambassadors in the building. And so what we have seen historically in JCPS is magnet coordinators are typically a school secretary or a counselor or an assistant principal or even the principal in the building, and they already have their plates runneth over. And so having a person to be intentional about implementing that magnet theme in the building is essential to us being able to move our magnet work forward. And so that will be a role in JCPS.
Yes. That's nice. I like that. I like that the school community is involving students with that. I think that kind of helps showcase the culture and what a parent and or student can expect from that school. I know transfers are I don't want to say a popular thing, but transfers happen often, right? And with the new plan, is there anything different about student transfers? You know, what qualifies or warrants a student transfer?
Yeah, so we did change our criteria for a student transfer, and so it was just changed to capacity only. So transfers are granted based on the capacity that's available at the school. We are going to be making some adjustments to our transfers, and because of our new plan, we could have siblings that would require a transfer in order to attend the same school. So let's say we have an older sibling that's already enrolled in elementary school, a kindergartner is coming in and they have a different boundary than their sibling, and so we'll work with the family to approve transfers as much as we can. So we will be prioritizing sibling transfers, and that is something we want to be clear and transparent about, that sibling transfers will be one of the top priorities for our office in the transition to this new plan. But again, it's just capacity now. There still is not any transportation with transfers, and so that was, that's a question. Sometimes families get granted transfers and they don't understand they have to provide their own transportation, and so that is something important to know. Yes.
That's major. And so as we look to wrap this up, are there any particular things, any points that stand out that a parent, guardian, or student should remember about the Choice Zone plan?
So students that live in the Choice Zone, and I will say too, with just our new school choice plan in general, this is going to be implemented with incoming kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade. So we almost have 100,000 students in our district. And so we wanted to do what was least disruptive. We did not want to negatively impact students that were already attending school. So if you're a 4th grader attending Low Elementary, we did not want to change boundaries and have you in a place where you could not continue and finish out your elementary school path at that particular school or journey. And so this will be again implemented with incoming kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade students. If you do live in the Choice Zone, again, an application will be required to make that selection for a school close to home or far away. There will not be a default. So engaging in the application is imperative to make sure that that school selection has been determined. It is based on your address. So again, School Finder is a great tool to know exactly what the options are from your particular address. And we want families to understand too that this is an additional choice. Again, engaging in that magnet application, or if you want to submit a student transfer application, those options are still available to you. And we want to increase access, especially for our magnet schools and programs. So we want families to be sure to explore their options. Again, Showcase of Schools, October the 15th from 9 to 4 at the Kentucky International Convention Center. Please come. Again, our shuttles that we have that posted on our website. It's also gone out to families in email to let families know and to be aware of pickup locations that will be running throughout the day. That's the kickoff. And so we're excited to start this journey. We want families to be aware of their options.
And one question I like to end each episode with is a shout out. So just brief, one sentence, one word or two, an educator or person that has influenced you to do the work that you're doing.
Well, mine's easy. I'm gonna go with my colleague here to my left.
Fancy.
Amanda. So she said it earlier in the podcast, and I think that I said it too, and I mentioned it last year, but it's just something that I think should resonate with everyone, which is in our department particularly, we always sit in what's right. So we always strive to do what's best for students and best for families, and education is one of the top things that you can really do for a child to help them have a successful future. So those words came straight from Amanda herself, and so she's definitely somebody I admire and look up to.
Oh, Lindsay, thank you. And I'm really, really hard with these things. I think because my memory's getting bad as I get a little older or seasoned in my life.
That's okay, seasoned.
But the one person that comes to mind, and it wasn't necessarily any words that were ever said, it was more action. Mm-hmm. And that is Dr. Bonnie Marshall. And I will say, even being in education now, remembering her at Whitney Young Elementary as a 4th and 5th grader. I was in the advanced program, and there weren't many students that looked like me. And so she would come and, check in with students of color to ensure that, we were successful and that we had what we needed, and that focus on equity even at that time, even though I didn't know what that term meant. It was giving students what they needed in order to be successful. And so when I see her now, and for her to just say, I'm proud of you and I see you, she saw me then. And seeing individuals in education that actually do see you, just lets you know that there are always opportunities for success. And so when those are afraid of the changes and students having an option close to home, I will say, and I said this yesterday in a meeting, there will never be a time where students that look like me or my children or my grandchildren that I haven't met yet that don't have the opportunity to be successful. And I see greatness in them all. And she saw greatness in me, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I know how important that is for us to have in our students as we move this plan forward. So,
well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that, and this will conclude season 2, episode 3 of the Pillar Podcast with School Choice. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.